Thank you, John. When you share a story when you were a kid with your children, it can go a couple of different ways. It's usually some insight that your child can learn from you when you were a kid, or it can get tricky and uncomfortable really quickly. So Reese and I had a scenario in the second category. She was in middle school, and we were just talking one day, and I just blurted out that I had my first kiss with a boy named Troy, and I was in 7th grade. Now, if I had planned on doing this, I would have done it differently. But what happened, so normally in conversations with Reese, either her phone's there and she's kind of sometimes looking at it or she's holding it. This was a game changer. She put her phone down, her whole attention, she had her whole body towards me, and she was peppering me with questions. Because again, same age, right? And she's like, was he your boyfriend? I said, no, he wasn't. Did you like him? I said, well, he was cute, and on and on and on and on. Unguarded moment. Now, if I would have planned it, the message wouldn't have gotten through, and I probably would have sounded like, you know, the adults on the Charlie Brown cartoons, wah, 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 wah. So in retrospect, it probably ended up well because I caught her attention and it led into more of a conversation. But this is what unguarded moments are. You say something, and then it happens, and you're in the moment. And because of the nature of them, they can be the best of times, or they can be the worst of times. I think there's a couple of categories, in my opinion, there's a couple categories. One is things you shouldn't say. And social media is a platform for that, and we see a lot of celebrities that get in trouble there. That's the worst of times. Then there's moments that come from the heart, and these are the best of times. So let's look at that a little further. How many of you like to order room service when you're in a hotel? My husband Brian and I love to do this, specifically room service breakfast. And there's a couple reasons for that. One is a former job, I was room service manager at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel on the Plaza. And the second is it's a little way to pamper ourselves. So I thought I would describe what a room service department looks like. Probably most of you haven't ever experienced one. And at the Ritz-Carlton, the restaurant is on the main floor of the hotel, and it's a long restaurant. And then there's a wall. On the other side of the wall, there's a small area that's the room service department. You have a service elevator here. You have the kitchen here that serves the restaurant and room service. And this is a very, very busy place. You have people coming up and down the service elevator for the restaurant, and the chefs are bringing food up and down from the main kitchen, and you have room service servers going up and down in the elevator. So it's a active place. And it was amongst this pandemonium that my moment happened. It was just a flash. That's all it was. But the impact lasted for decades. It was October, and fall was in full swing. Leaves were red and yellow and orange, and Halloween was right around the corner. The hotel had a pumpkin carving contest. So all departments would submit a pumpkin, and they would determine who the winner was. So I had a friendly bet with someone from the Bell staff that whichever department won, that you would buy the other one a drink. There was a group of friends that we would go out after work occasionally, so we agreed to do that. The contest came and went, and neither one of us won. So I said to this, and so I need to stop the story here. So neither one of us won, and I said, well, let's go have a drink anyway. Pause the story. The person I had the bet with is my husband, Brian. Back to the story. This conversation took place in this room service environment. Chaos everywhere, and we had this conversation. Now, what you need to understand is that Brian and I have two different ways of describing this moment. Brian describes it as me asking him out on our first date. I describe it as we were just talking about this bet we had, and there is no way I would ask you out amongst all my coworkers. We went out, we went to an art exhibit, and then we went out for a drink. At the end of the night, Brian walked me to my car and we had a goodnight kiss. So it ended up to be a date. Now, what has happened with this story is it's become a fun story to tell. Now, Brian used to tell it because he knew I was a little embarrassed by it, and so he loved to get a rise. It was more to get a rise out of me than anything. But over time, it's become a story that I'm really fond of because it's our story, right? And then when we tell people, we instantly say, okay, which one of us is right, right? Which one of us is right? But what ends up happening is they tell us about their stories and it ends up to be a really fun conversation. So were Brian and I sharing something that was deep inside us and we weren't necessarily willing to share with each other? I don't know. But that's how unguarded moments are. They just happen, and the catcher is you can't plan them, and then you realize after the fact what happens, right? But that's the beauty of them. Now, because of the beauty of them, the nature of them also is that they can be the best of times, and they can be the worst of times. But bottom line is that they are a perfect gift that you can give and receive each other. My moment has ended in 25 years of marriage, 3 children, and 4 grandchildren. So who knows, the next time you have an unguarded moment, you too may have a story that you can tell for the rest of your life. Thank you.